If you're going to do an interview with a manager after a game and one of the subject matters is going to be about refereeing decisions that have been controversial doing it, then it has to be priced in that there's going to be, or baked into the conversation, or baked into the tolerance that the various authorities have, that there's going to be an element of dissent in that. It's how far that dissent goes. Where that dissent doesn't go, or shouldn't be allowed to go, is to turn around and say that our refereeing standards are substandard to the rest of Europe. Because you don't have any empirical evidence to support that. You're not managing in any of those leagues. Yeah. You're just making assertions. You can't...
Hit the like and the share button, people. Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Make sure you've got bell notifications turned on as well. You don't want to miss any of our content. Get that done. Lots of subjects to talk about on the show this afternoon. We're starting off with VAR. We're starting off with referees. And another member of the mainstream media, another disc jockey, another journalist in Simon Jordan, attacking a manager, slamming a manager for speaking his mind about the situation. We're going to go into that. We're also going to look at Arsenal's title credentials and a big take on Tottenham and their potential title charge as well. So stay with us for the entirety of the video. Let's just go back to what he's saying here again, Simon Jordan. Take a look, listen again.
Of dissent in that. It's how far that dissent goes. Where that dissent doesn't go, or shouldn't be allowed to go, is to turn around and say that our refereeing standards are substandard to the rest of Europe. Because you don't have any empirical evidence to support that. You're not...
Well, I want to stop Simon there. First of all, he's come out and said that if you interview managers straight after games, which they're contractually obliged to do, the heat of the moment, it's sport, these are all winners. And even if you see a manager that doesn't win anything, they are still winners till got to that point throughout their career. They want to win, they're emotional, they're passionate, they have desire. You're going to get an element of dissent. Therefore, why are you analyzing his words straight after a game as exactly how it is that he feels? It's already a little bit disingenuous for me, but we'll carry on. In terms of, and also in terms of the empirical evidence, no, you're right. He probably doesn't have stats to hand, but he has played and or managed across multiple leagues, probably watches multiple leagues, like a lot of football fans do, and sees more mistakes, more inconsistencies, and poor practices in the Premier League.
Not managing in any of those leagues. Yeah. You're just making assertions.
But he has managed in those leagues.
You can't really have a grown-up manager turn around and say, I don't like 80% of English referees. Right? Well, have you encountered 80% of English referees?
Well, he's encountered all of the English. Again, now what you're doing here, Simon Jordan, is you're being pedantic. You're taking what the manager has said and you're being overly scrupulous and attention to detail. Yes, he hasn't probably managed in games with 80% of English referees. But what he's definitely done is seen 80%, if not more, of Premier League referees, because there's only a small handful of them in the grand scheme of things. Yes, he hasn't had Dave, who normally does Sunday League over the Marshes. Yes, he hasn't done John, who occasionally gets a Conference South game to referee. But he has seen, I would say, all of the Premier League referees. And that is what he's referring to. We all understand what it is that De Zerbi's saying. You were just now being pedantic in trying to take him apart.
And why are you making this statement specifically on the back of a situation where, in fact, the issue of controversy is one that you agree with? I think it's ridiculous. And again, I go to the points, which is this is not really about singling out referees. This is about singling out the authority that officialdom is trying to reclaim in the game. Yeah. And there is a resistance. And this ridiculous notion that you want this Quango passing as the League Managers Association to come in and arbitrate any sort of discussion about what's going to be done and what's not going to be done with refereeing. Howard Webb needs to put his foot down. We don't need your input. We don't need your direction. We don't need your values. What we need you to do is do your job, get your players in line, stop allowing players to behave in a certain way, and we'll clear up our act if there's problems in our acts. Yeah.
See, I understand where Simon's coming from here, but where I want to disagree with him overarching is this is, again, the media coming out and defending the referees as far as I'm concerned. Yes, he's saying they've got to sort themselves out. But as soon as fans become too vocal, players become too vocal, managers become too vocal, we're told, no, that's too much dissent. You must not do it. They'll sort themselves out, but leave them alone. How are they sorting themselves out? How? It's only now the managers and clubs are starting to make these statements. There have been problems with VAR for years, referees for years, and they haven't fixed it. It hasn't got any better. We don't have the transparency that we want. And I wanted to call this out because it doesn't involve a top 16, which is predominantly what I cover here. But this is, again, another example of the mainstream media, in my opinion, for the dramatic Kardashian effect, defending the referees and VAR and the managers and clubs and players and fans. We need to keep speaking up about this because it's an absolute shit show.
are going to win the title. I don't know why I'm saying that in some ways, because City should, they are favourites. And, if they
I don't know why I'm saying it.
do what they do, then they'll win the league. But I just think there's something, post-treble, the demands of that, maybe a couple of injuries that have occurred already and might continue to occur during the season with what they've taken out of their bodies last season. Arsenal, that bit between the teeth, Declan Rice in the centre of midfield. I thought last Saturday.
Yeah, it's very interesting what he's saying here. And there's a reason I want to bring this up, because Arsenal are title contenders, in my opinion. They will be in the title race, unless something catastrophically goes wrong and they lose 5-6 first-team players or something for a long time. City is still my favourites, and I stand by that. City is still the most potent, scariest, most dangerous team in the Premier League. But the difference this year is that Liverpool are not quite at their peak best under Klopp, but they're on 27 points. Arsenal, 27 points. Spurs, who, yes, they've lost 2 games back-to-back, 26 points. Aston Villa, who are on a very good run of form, they're only 1 win away from being top of the league. And even the chasing pack behind that, Man United have been atrocious. Only 6 points off the top. Newcastle, I think, 6-7 points off the top. It is so close this year. Teams have improved. And I saw a debate going on yesterday. Have City fallen into the sort of pack with everybody else? And the answer's, have they fallen back into the pack, City? No. City have pretty much got the same amount of points now as they have all the time at this stage of the season. It's that everybody else is improving. Where I do think it's interesting is what Gary Neville said about the mental strain of doing a three-peat, doing the treble. Will that impact City? Give me your thoughts and feelings in the comments section below.
For 75 minutes, and it worried me the way they played, because Chelsea were fantastic. But the way in which they gained a point from that game, I think gives them real confidence, because it's a tough place to go.
If you swapped Rice from Arsenal to City, would you be saying City title?
Yeah, I'm going to answer it. Yes, you would. Not so much because City would be that much better, because they've already got great midfield players, but because Arsenal wouldn't have Declan Rice, who has been nothing short of sensational so far this season.
Probably. I think he's a big influence, Declan Rice. That power, that drive. But they've got brilliant players, City, anyway. But I think that you're right. Taking him out of Arsenal would cause them a massive problem. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be good enough. But I think with him in it, he can be a difference player, and it gives them a real chance. And I'm predicting, if you like, wildly, that City are going to have troubles during the season. They had a few already, and that they might continue, and there might be a little bit of a stumble, and there might.
And it's very interesting that Gary Neville has said this, because we've seen them lose twice. They drew their first game of the season against Chelsea. If you'd have said City will score 4 times at Stamford Bridge, you would assume they were going to be winners. But Chelsea kind of ripped them apart at times. And that's not to say everybody can do it. They're still my favourites. But what I find interesting about Arsenal in this conversation, and I bring Arsenal up because the clip I was sent through by you, my brilliant community, was talking about Arsenal. And they're 27 points. They're ahead of Spurs, who have been praised non-stop all year. Everybody assumes that Liverpool will be title contenders, and I understand why. But Arsenal were a team that I do think haven't looked as amazing this year in terms of the style of football when attacking. They haven't looked as potent. They haven't looked as direct. They haven't been as cutting edge. But I just feel like as an overall team, the games may have been a bit more boring, but I think they've just looked more sure. And they're definitely in this title race for me. Yesterday's game against City opens this up massively. And at the moment, I criticised Gary Neville for a lot of what he said. I've criticised Gary Neville for a lot of things he said, and I've praised him for a lot of things he said. And this is one where I think to myself, I think he genuinely could be absolutely on the money.
Blah, 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 blah.
Surprising, or potentially not that surprising result, as Wolverhampton Wanderers have beaten Tottenham Hotspur. I believe that this could be the seminal moment in Tottenham's season. I think everything that we've seen happen to Tottenham this week is the very definition of Spursism. And I wonder now if they are going to have it in them to recover.
Is it Spursy what they did? Do you think it's Spursy? I want an answer to that. If you've made it to 9 minutes and 30 seconds into this piece of content on the terrace, do you agree with, you're watching the Football Terrace, and do you agree with Rory Jennings on the Mark Goldberg show on TalkSPORT? Let me know.
We have a caller on the line. I believe that Daniel is waiting to talk to us. Daniel is a Tottenham fan. What's on your mind, Daniel?
Hi, mate. You right?
I am. I'm. To be honest, there's a spring in my step, Daniel, but I imagine there isn't in yours.
Well, there would be, mate, 'cause you got very lucky the other week. Because certainly if it was 11v11, that wouldn't be the same scoreline. We both know that. But point being is, and I'll speak for 99.9% of Spurs fans here, we were never in the title challenge. You're the ones that are saying we're in the title challenge just so you can try and beat us when it obviously...
Stopping it there. No, there's no way. No. A few journalists, yes. A few journalists did go a little bit too far, too soon, too early. And I called them out for their hypocrisy because they didn't say that Arsenal won a title race until about 30-odd games into last season. But it's Spurs fans. It's been Spurs fans. And we've had fights on the terrace between Spurs fans saying, please don't say that. Now they've lost 2 games on the bounce. They want to blame Rory Jennings and TalkSPORT for saying it. I know a lot of Spurs fans didn't think they were in a title race, but blaming it on the media, that is a title race lie and a half.
We don't have the squad for that. We don't spend the money for a title challenge. That was never the case. The case was getting back into Europe, and if the season started well, which at the moment it certainly...
I want to just debunk a little myth as well. Spurs have spent nearly £2 billion in the Premier League era on players, and in the last 2 seasons, only spent £20 million less than Man United and Eric Ten Hag. This notion that Spurs are a little club, don't spend money, is a lie. No one spent as much as Chelsea. Nobody spent as much as City in the Premier League era. Man United, I think, come in 3rd or 4th. But Spurs are up there in the top 5, top 6 spenders. I think it's £1.89 billion they have spent. And in recent years, it's well over £400 million. So again, that element I disagree with this caller on. This notion they don't spend is a fallacy.
It is the potential top 4 challenge. And that has always been the objective. And Tottenham Hotspur at the moment are a potential top 4 team, not a title challenging team. So you saying that is just an excuse so you can bash us when the inevitable happens and we don't win the title, which was never going to happen anyway.
Although Daniel, as much as I probably agree with you, I never thought that Tottenham were capable of winning the league. And I do believe that if you end up qualifying for the top 4, if you make it into the European Cup next season, that is a fantastic season from Tottenham Hotspur and for Postecoglou in particular. However, you can understand why we were saying that Tottenham were title contenders. We were more than a quarter of the way through the season. You were unbeaten. You were top of the league. You'd played, 10 and you won 8. Surely you were starting to dream a touch.
Well, not really, because you still had people beating us down by saying we didn't play anyone that well. You know,
And I hear him on that, and I think he's right in that aspect there. But look, I watched Rory's video when he spoke about could they be title contenders, and he spoke about them thinking about it and dreaming about it. But most of the people that come onto the terrace, most of the people I've come across that said they're in a title race were Spurs fans. Why not? Why doubt us? Why this? Why that? We're this. We're different. There's an aura now at the football club. Backtracking somewhat now a little bit, I think. But listen, I'd love your views. I'd love your opinions. Please hit the like and the share button. Also, check out our TikTok if you haven't done so already. Go and give that a follow. The QR code is on the screen now. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again soon.